Hello, and welcome to my Ardy Knight's Thieving guide. My name is ClockMan3, and I want to run through an in-depth guide to Ardy Knight's Thieving. I'm not normally a content creator, so any apologies for any mic or quality issues that you may hear, but this guide is to provide you with core information that will help out your grind, and it's not really for the quality of the video itself. When I spoke of making this within public chat, I was told there is nothing more to Ardy Thieving than simply clicking. And whilst this is somewhat true, there are a number of things you can do to optimize your XP rates whilst you're playing, and several other important bits of information which I will cover. I am making this just to alleviate a ton of questions I saw during my grind, and just to pull up some examples of rates of the daily XP and the hourly XP rates that I was hitting, you can see that I can walk the walk with what I'm going to cover here, and that I have tested out some of the methods at close to tick perfect, or what realistically tick perfect can be achieved by a human being. So based on this, I will do a quick run through guide of what you need to get started and the XP rates you are likely to see, and I'll include a link to a Google Docs spreadsheet of what rates you are both theoretically and reasonably achievable for your level based on your gear setup. I will also cover more specifically questions regarding the Shadow Veil spell and whether or not this is worth using. So what are the requirements and recommendations to do this? Well, the only actual requirement is to have 55 thieving. That's it. However, the recommended requirements, I'm still going to only say 55 thieving, given we are only talking about an Ardy Knight's guide here, and this is really to get you from 55 all the way to 99. The additional recommendations, and I would say are absolutely necessary requirements, is to have the Ardougne medium diary done, or the Ardy Cloak 2 as it's known. This will give you a 10% increased chance of pickpocketing whilst you are in the city. You do not need to wear the cloak to gain this bonus, you just simply need to have completed the diary. So other than that, you don't have to wear it, just make sure you've got the diary completed. The other recommendation I'd give is to have at least 50 health. This just allows you to AFK longer and means you can eat higher level foods to reduce downtime in terms of ticks lost, but you can do this with 10 HP if you so wish. The other one that I would highly recommend is to get the Rogue's outfit. This is got from the Rogue's Den, and it will only take you about 45 minutes to an hour to achieve. A lot of people seem to have had nightmares about getting this based on previous history of the Den, and it did used to take several hours in the past, but this has been changed more recently in the last year or two. I'm not exactly sure when, but you can now choose your pieces from the crates you receive at the end of the runs, so you can actually get this within an hour, probably an hour and a half if you're incredibly unlucky. So just go get it. It will increase the amount of GP that you earn whilst you're doing this grind. However, it doesn't actually impact the XP rates at all, so I'll leave it up to you as to whether or not you think you want to do this. The other thing that is absolutely mandatory in my opinion is the dodgy necklaces. These dodgy necklaces, I used around 200 of them, getting from 61 to 95. 95 being the level at which you stop failing with the medium diary, and you should not need any more than around 250 absolute maximum if you're staying at the Knights the whole way from 55 to 99. Even for Iron Man, you should really get these. It's not going to take you too long from mining gem rocks and your own silver ore to create them. It probably won't take you any longer than about 2 to 3 hours to collect all you need to get for 99. If you're a main, just buy them off the GE. It's dead simple and a lot easier, but in my opinion these are absolutely worth it purely because you don't have to do anything other than equip them, and when they break, just equip a new one. It's very AFK, there's not a lot of actual clicking involved to keep these up, so just use these the whole way through. The only final recommendation, although this is by no means a requirement, is if you have some health regen items such as the 99 HP cape, the rejuvenation bracelet, or even some HP restore prayers if you want to use that, although that seems a bit overkill. You can use all these. It will mean that you don't have to eat quite as much, which may help you out in the longer run, but by no means are these required. I didn't have any of these, and I didn't really notice any particular downside from doing that. So how to start? I've reset all my settings back to the base default UI, however I am using the RuneLite client. I would highly recommend that you use this whilst you are playing, but I will show you how to set up everything that I'm recommending in the guide, and I'll give you some walkthroughs. Before doing anything, the first thing that you should do is make sure that your NPC attack options here are changed from left click where available to hidden. This is under the spanner or settings button just here on your UI. Make sure you click this, that way whenever you actually do target an Ardy Knight, it will not be set to attack as the first option, which will make your life incredibly painful. It will mean that you'll have to right click first and then select pickpocket. I know this isn't an ardy night, but to give you an example here, the guard is on a left click. If I change this back to the NPC attack options, my pickpocket is on a right click. So it's the same concept with the ardy knights. Please just set it to hidden. It'll make your life 10 times easier. You can also change this using the menu entry swapper plugin, but this feels like a bit of overkill, and really it's just easier to keep the NPC attack options hidden. You can also, the second thing to note, as you pickpocket the knight, you'll receive something called a coin pouch. Now I'm just going to hop quickly to a world with a knight on, and I will demonstrate for you what this is. I will run through what this CC is and exactly how to use it, and which ones to join, but for now I'm just going to give you a little bit of a straight demo. So here we're at a world with a knight that's being thieved, and I'll talk about what's happening here. But as you click onto the knight, you'll get this thing called a coin pouch. You need to click it in order to open it. If you get to above 28 of them in your inventory, then you can no longer pickpocket the knight, and you will have to open the ones that you currently have in your inventory, otherwise it will block you from doing any more. In my opinion, you should really open these whenever you can, especially in the earlier levels when you get stunned. You should open them as you are stunned, but really it's up to you however you wish to do this. In my opinion, waiting until you get to beyond 20 is probably the most AFK way of doing it. Don't wait too long, because otherwise you'll hit into a barrier, even whilst doing some tick perfect methods. But just to give you a little bit of a quick demonstration, once you get up to the 28, you can see in the game chat here, I can no longer get any more. Whenever I click on this knight, it just says you need to open the coin pouches. Once you open it, you can then go again, and they will let you keep on thieving. So make sure you're opening those as you go, and you won't hit any massive blockers. There's two things I strongly recommend whilst you're doing this. The first thing is to make sure you're doing it on a PC and during a highly active world for total number thieving, as this will make it significantly easier and cause you to fail less, which I'll explain in a second. The second thing that I'll go over is, as I have mentioned, using RuneLite. The main reason for this is because of a plugin which is available as part of the default plugins that you see on the right here, which is called Entity Hider. This Entity Hider plugin will hide a bunch of things for you. If you follow the settings that I have ticked here, once you enable it, you will see everything but the knight disappears. And what this will do is it will mean that you won't click through the knight when there's too many options available to your left click, which happens very often whilst you're doing this in a very highly populated world. And it also means that you can see the knight a lot easier to be able to continue to thieve from him. You do also have the option to hide yourself, which is here. However, I would recommend not doing this simply because when I show you how to set up your camera later, you can see your dodgy necklaces on you, and it'll make it a lot easier for you to be able to replace others whilst you're AFKing, because you'll have another visual indicator. And your own player being visual is probably going to be helpful, so you can keep an eye on your HP at lower levels. The secondary thing, and the reason why I recommend you playing on PC, is because you will misclick significantly less. I've tried this on mobile, and the amount of times that I accidentally double-clicked onto someone and accidentally reported them rather than pickpocketing the knight, or click to follow someone, or click to trade someone. It's just a lot easier to do this on a PC with the Entity Hider enabled, and this way you're going to have a much simpler time, and you can do this a lot more AFK by comparison to what you would on a mobile. So where should you do this? So currently I am in the Ardougne South Bank, so just to show you, this is Ardougne. This is the South Bank down here. This is where all of the splashing takes place, which I'll cover in a little second. And this is where knights get trapped, and it makes your life incredibly AFK. There is a second option, which people do talk about in this northeast building up here, where my mouse is currently hovering over. This is used normally at above 95 because it's a very AFK method. However, this is a little bit outdated. This used to be a place to go to simply because you couldn't do anything with your inventory, and it was easier to keep in a resized window, and then keep your inventory on the right, and you wouldn't have to move. However, this can now be alleviated, and I'll show you how later on in the guide. So in my opinion, it's actually better to just stay where the splasher is, because it means the knight will guaranteed not move, and there will not be any other issues with the knight moving backwards and forwards between two spots, which is what happens in the northeast building. So I would say just come to the south bank, stay here and you will have a much easier and simpler time. So I mentioned before the clan chats and how did I find this world. So there's two clan chats you can go to. One is this one called Thieving Host. The other one is called Splash Worlds. And what you need to do is when you go into this chat, if you sort by the world, you will see the world that has a high number of active players on it. So in this case, I saw that, well, I see at the minute there's 487 that is also fairly active, and 443. If there's a high number of players in this world, it's pretty likely that there is a splasher here. However, if you really want to be that guy, you can also ask in the clan chat for where there is a splasher happening and just go to that world. In this world, there actually isn't a splasher at the minute. This is just a trapped knight. You'll be able to see, and hopefully if I jump over to the other world, you can see the casting animation going onto the knight. This will keep the knight from despawning. If there is just simply a trapped knight, he will move backwards and forwards, and yes, this world does have a splasher. He'll move backwards and forwards between here, however he can get stuck in this one square, and if he stays stuck without a splash on him, he will despawn and reset his position after 5 minutes. So this way, you can stay here for hours. I've done some 6-hour straight sessions with the splasher on him. This is 10 times easier, so try and find a splashing world, and you can see that based on the cast that's coming out here, and you see it just splashing onto the knight. So those two CCs, just to remind you, is Thieving Host and Splash Worlds. They're active pretty much 24/7, so you shouldn't have any issues in finding an active splasher. Some quick myths that I'm just going to cover over before we go on to any other details. So the first thing is, having run on does absolutely nothing whilst you're thieving. This is commonly spewed, and I believe it came from a rumor that happened on potentially a Theoatrix video years ago. The knight will not move based on your run being on. The knight will only move whilst he's being splashed on if multiple or too many people fail a pickpocket at the same time. This can cause him to glitch. It doesn't always, but that's what causes him to move. Your run energy in no way affects it, and I have tested this for hours doing this grind. There is absolutely no correlation whatsoever to your run energy being on to him moving. So if you want to keep your energy on, feel free. It's probably easier to have it off anyway, because if you misclick, you might end up running over around here, and then you just end up porting out the bank sometimes when you're too AFK. So you can put it to walk. It may make your life easier if you're AFKing too much, but there's no necessity for you to put on or turn off your run energy. So if anyone spews this, just tell them they're wrong. It says this on the wiki as well, so direct them either to this video or to the wiki, and make sure they understand this is absolute BS. The other myth that came from the game a long time ago is that wearing armor or weapons reduces your chance of success. This is not true. The only thing that reduces or increases your chance of succeeding in a pickpocket is purely based on the thieving related equipment help that you have. So for example, dodgy necklaces, Shadow Veil spell, Ardougne medium diaries, or hard diaries if you're doing this elsewhere. Those are the only things that help your thieving rate. So wear whatever fashionscape that you so please, nothing will actually impact your thieving rate other than the percent modifiers. Your actual armor, weapons, etc. don't do anything. So, to come on to what you've probably come to this video for, the XP rates of whilst you're doing this. So, I've done a Google Doc which is broken down based on my experience of going through each of these levels. All of the XP rates and the time taken for you to get each level. You can see here I've done the whole breakdown from level 55 through to 99 with a time for level with focused attention versus a time for level whilst you're a bit more AFK. In all the playtests and comparisons I did against other players whilst I was doing this grind, it seemed to be that if you're AFKing, you're achieving about 20k less against my focused experience rates. Some could be significantly less depending on how much you are truly AFKing whilst doing this. I will put a link to this document, but on the left hand side it does also show you a breakdown of the real rates with the dodgy necklace and the medium diary. Whilst focusing, this was the rates that I achieved in my whole grind through to 99 whilst focusing, and then on the right hand side was what I think you'll probably achieve if you're AFKing quite a bit more, which is pretty much just dead on exactly 20k minus off the rates that I was achieving. The total time you can expect to spend here whilst you are getting to 99, I've put just here. So if you're focusing, from 55 to 99 will take you about 65 hours, and if you're AFKing, will take you anywhere from 73 plus hours. It may take you as much as 90 depending on how AFK you are doing this. So that should give you a bit of a breakdown. I'll post a link to this spreadsheet in the information section below, so feel free to use this as a reference guide and calculate how many hours you think it will take you to get to 99, or to any other level based on adding this up. Each of these time for levels is based on hours, so just do a sum of that and you'll be able to figure out how many hours you'll need to get from, say, 55 to 70 or to 75 all the way through to 99. This is just the total to 99 from 55. So the Shadow Veil spell, and this is one of the biggest questions that I had the whole way through on going through this. However, before I talk about this, what is Shadow Veil? So Shadow Veil is a spell that you can unlock from the Arceus spellbook once you've completed the quest A Kingdom Divided. This provides a 15% chance of reducing the chance of being stunned whilst pickpocketing, and it stacks multiplicatively with the Dodgy Necklace. The Dodgy Necklace gives 25%, and using the two together is equal to a 36.25% chance of not being stunned when caught. So, is Shadow Veil worth using? The answer to this is flat out no. And listen, if you want to maximize the efficient rates, then go ahead. If it makes you feel better, use it. However, for the additional focus and clicks required to maintain this in what is already an incredibly click-intensive method of a skill, it does not net you any significant gain, and I can say this with significant confidence. The reason being is in all the playtests that I have seen personally, I have not seen any particular difference between using Shadow Veil versus just simply focusing on your grind. The other part is, and I've laid this out in the spreadsheet in the Shadow Veil Theory tab, which you can see here. This is slightly off focus. The time saved per level, both focused and time saved AFK, is so minimal. This again is in hours. So you're saving 0.02 of an hour based on your average fail rates at this level, all the way down to, actually, it's starting to be a detriment probably to your rates as you get towards 95. So the total time that you will save using the Shadow Veil spell on your route from 55 to 99 is less than an hour whilst focused and less than an hour whilst AFK. Now, it does help your rate, so this is still a bonus. However, I would say for the amount of time and effort that you need to put into it, it is simply not worth it. If you do not have dodgy necklaces and the only thing you have to use is Shadow Veil, and you really do not want to get dodgy necklaces for whatever reason, then the Shadow Veil spell, go ahead and use it. But even on its own, it will still only save you about an hour and a half in the whole grind from 55 to 95, and dodgy necklaces are just way better purely because they're so AFK. So in my opinion, Shadow Veil, not worth it in the slightest. Again, all this calculation is down in the Excel sheet, which I will link in the description, but you do not by any means need to use it, and don't feel bad if you don't have it. Do not bother to go and grind out all the core end favors and everything else that you need in order to be able to get this spell, because it simply will not be worth your time. Okay? So, I'm going to go through now some ways in order to improve your quality of life whilst doing this grind, which is approximately a 150,000 click plus method, which translates to more realistically as probably 500,000 clicks, which is insane. So here's some options to make it more bearable and to save your risks. The first is to use mouse keys. I'm not going to run through a setup of this, but it will allow you to use the number 5 key on your number pad to click instead of using your mouse left click option. This is a bit less strenuous than holding a mouse and then left clicking several 100,000 times, and it's an easy alternative to other methods I am about to mention. Client resizing is another option, so you can shrink the size of your clients. That way your inventory hovers over the knight if you position your inventory over towards the right hand side. This is what is done in the northeast building. However, this is an outdated method which I'll go over in a second. The other option is to use a foot pedal. Now, this may seem like overkill, but getting a cheap foot pedal off Amazon or something similar will make this no longer feel as punishing to you at all. It will save your risk quite a bit, and you can find a cheap one for under 15 to 20 pounds or dollars. They take under 5 minutes to set up, and they're going to save you a bunch of pain for your wrists whilst you're doing this grind. The other thing is camera position at the bank. So this is probably one of the most important tips in this whole guide. You want to make sure, given that the knight is only going to move between these two squares, your camera is positioned here. This will mean that if the knight moves between the two squares, you'll still be clicking him, and you want to click somewhere in his chest area. That way, you're never going to have to pay attention to it. Even if he moves, you'll still be clicking onto him and still thieving him, no matter what happens. The second thing is the Inventory Viewer plugin. So again, this is another RuneLite feature. If you go down to here, Inventory Viewer, enable this. This will then show you a copy of your inventory. So this way, if you're thieving, and this isn't my real inventory, I cannot click this, I cannot select this, this is a map over. This will give you a bit more freedom to look at stuff, and I'll go over how to combine this with something else in a second, but it'll mean that you don't need to move your mouse at all with another feature of RuneLite, which will help you significantly. So that feature being is the ability to move features of your inventory with the RuneLite window. So if you press the Alt key, you see here it highlights each of the individual UI features. This will then allow you to move these on top of the knight, which is incredibly helpful. So this is the inventory viewer plugin. So you see my real inventory is here, the inventory viewer is here. I can click here and it will click directly through him. And then I can move my inventory to then be, and I'll just get one here because it'll make easier to line up. You can then move the inventory to line up the coin pouches quite easily, like that. And then you can click just onto the knight, and whenever you need to empty your pouches, you can simply open your inventory and then click it back off. The way I just did that is using key bindings, which again is part of your settings. And this is going to look horrific with the inventory viewer on. So under your all settings, you can go to controls, and under controls here, if I can close this off, your inventory here you can bind to whatever key you want. I set it to F2 because that's how I use it with PVM, but this means that you can then use the F2 key and then open and close it. You see I'm not clicking to it, I'm just using the F2 key on my keyboard, and then you can do exactly what I was just doing there, which is close my inventory off, click the knight, and then as I'm going through my levels, open up my inventory, open the coin pouches, and then close it again. So the two in combination is very, very strong. I'd recommend doing this, as it's a very easy way for you to be able to pay very little attention and keep thieving without running into the problem of your coin pouches blocking you. With the key combo above, you can also just hold the F key, which will then spam flash it and keep clicking whilst completely AFK, but I wouldn't recommend doing this as you lose quite a lot of clicks. And epilepsy warning here, please look away if you've got any issue with flashing lights, but this is sort of what it looks like. You can just keep clicking, and this way you'll open your coin pouches as you're doing it, but you miss an awful lot of ticks and clicks whilst you're doing this method. So I don't recommend it. I think it's easier to just click, 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 and every now and then just press an F key, open your coin pouches, close it, and then go back to doing whatever it is that you're doing. Now, I'm going to talk about some real sweaty methods in this whole grind. So, this is one of my favorite things. So if you really want to maximize your XP here and do it as quickly as possible, here's some things to know. The first thing is that you can zero tick eat whilst you're actively thieving. Now, how to know if you're doing this right? So up in the top right here, every tick that you thieve, or every thieving action, sorry, takes 2 ticks. So if I'm just spam clicking here, you can see there's 2 indicators that come up, and that will let you know that you've gone through 2 ticks on the game cycle. Now, as you're doing this, so I'm just going to give you a demonstration here, you can click, 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 and then right as the next XP is about to drop, so now you can then click open and drink, and you see I lost no tick, and you can tell I've drank a wine because my attack's gone down, and this will mean that you don't lose any time whilst you're eating and doing this. If you eat whilst you are stunned, you lose 2 ticks no matter what. So normally when you get stunned, you lose 12 ticks, which is a 6-second downtime. If you eat whilst you are stunned, you will take 14 ticks, which is 7.2 seconds before you can start thieving again. So try to eat actively whilst pickpocketing. Do not wait until you're stunned. I made this mistake the whole way through as I was leveling. There's no point in doing this, so just make it easier on yourself. You can just drink or eat whilst you're thieving. It'll be slightly quicker. Opening the coin pouches as well whilst you're thieving also takes no ticks. So if you just spam click like this, and again wait till the XP is about to drop, and then you can open the coin pouch and you can see I'm still keeping in the tick rhythm. I'm not dropping any ticks whilst I'm doing it, and the coin pouch is just being opened. So these are super sweaty methods. Don't recommend unless you're trying to be maximum efficient, but for each their own. You can do it as you wish. If you want to be super intense, feel free. I liked to keep up this method, and as you saw earlier in the screenshot that I had up here, I was managing to achieve rates of close to tick perfect over 95 being 252.9 kxp per hour. As you can see in this image, I was achieving just short of that at 251.1, which is incredibly efficient, and I was getting accused of botting consistently because I was hitting these rates. It's really not that hard to actually keep it up if you're keeping some intense focus. I know it isn't for everyone, but for me, I just like to challenge myself, and it was kind of fun doing it, I'm not going to lie. My wrist probably feels the pain of doing it, however, I got to that end point now, so do this grind as you so wish to do it. There is no set way to correctly achieve 99 thieving realistically. But I would say do what makes you happy. If you want to AFK it, do that. If you want to pay a lot of attention, use the methods I've mentioned in this guide, and hopefully it's been incredibly helpful. I just want to give some shout outs at the end of this. Because a lot of people made this grind significantly more bearable. The first shout out is kind of a meme, but it's going to Other Zoltan, who was a hardcore Ironman that died whilst I was doing this grind and lost his status. Don't AFK you too hard if you're doing this grind, especially if you're a hardcore. That will happen to you. I've seen a lot of people die here, but just pay a little bit of attention so you don't drop your HP down to nothing. The second shout out goes to World376 Splash. The guy is an absolute fucking machine. He's made many of the XP per hour tests I did possible, as he kept splashing for 6 to 18 hours some days. Good luck on the 200 mil magic experience, bro. I hope you get there someday. The third shout out goes to Muvuk. Again, another beast of a splasher who is god tier at Dragon Spearing. The knight back into place if it dislodges, and he also gives friendly hourly reminders for birdhouse runs for Ironman. The fourth goes out to Alphabet Boy. Again, just another great splasher with great banter and made this grind a lot more tolerable for me, especially when I tried to pull a 19.5 hour day and fell asleep at my desk. Cheers, Alphabet. You did me a solid. The final shout I want to give is to ClockMan Lower and ClockMan0. Watch this, you scrubs, and get your thieving up. We need seeds. And finally, thank you for watching. I hope you learned something in this guide. If it was useful or if I missed anything, please drop a comment below. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, and enjoy your thieving grinds.